Hello, this is Matt Wallace, and we are streaming live on my channel for Music Quest. And I am extremely excited today to be talking to a wonderful, talented, nice person, Denise Lee. Thank you so much. You there? Talk to me.
I am. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I am like I said, I think we talked a little bit earlier, and I am very happy to be doing this because this idea has been something I've been wanting to do a very long time, and you were very much in my mind as the type of person I wanted to talk to at this point. I know you, but I don't know you. There's things that
I
I
know.
anticipate I anticipate learning, and yet I know
Uh-oh.
it. I know enough about you and have worked with you to know that there's going to be plenty to talk about. And so
Now
it's
I'm afraid.
no. There's no reason to be afraid.
No.
So I am everyone. This is Denise Lee, and she and I met a few years ago on a film project through a common friend, a guy named Dean Nolan.
Who
Uh,
I love dearly.
yeah. Tell me a little bit more about how you know Dean and some of your background with that. Hey, we also have some people. Let's see. Let's see. Trying to read.
Well, and understand that if you see me look down, my dog, who has been very, very patient and quiet,
Uh huh.
realizes now that I'm online. And so
Ah,
if I have to get up and put her
it's
out,
it's
come
it's all
in.
good. It's all good. It's all good. So
Here.
basically, I was trying to make sure that our audio was similar in volume going out, and
Okay.
I'm just watching this the stuff, so it looks good. We have some people online, and when I've been doing these streams. I've done two of them so far. I've done
Okay.
one interview, but I've done two that are just solo, just me talking about stuff, and they've been short. But it's very, very different when you're not talking to somebody. But the idea is that you've got some people chatting with you online on stream. I'm not used to having people in my chat window yet. So, I mean, I've had a couple here and there. So today, there are already a couple people watching. So, yeah, we're good.
Hey,
I
y'all.
Yeah, okay. So back to what I was saying earlier. I
Sure.
apologize. It's going to be a while before I have all the technical stuff figured out and am comfortable enough to not talk about it. So I'm glad it sounds pretty good. So actually, there are two people on the chat right now who are on set with us in Tertium Quid. So
Oh,
they know who
really?
you are. And so, Thought Storms, do you remember the big guy that stood on the crates that stopped? That guy, Keith?
Yes.
He's on here. And then my son, who obviously worked on the audio,
Right.
he was helping me and he's checking out and just listening, make sure everything looks good. So he definitely knows who you are.
Okay.
And
Well, cool.
so welcome everybody on chat. I will try to remember. I'm going to be too enthralled talking to Denise, but I'm going to try to look up and if I'm like staring at something, Denise, and not talking, it's because I'm trying to read. I can't do both of these things at the same time. So back to
Okay.
the original thing. Tell me about how you and I met through Dean and some of your background with Dean.
Dean Nolan, who I love dearly, is one of the most amazing actors. I met him when he came to Dallas to do A Christmas Carol, and I wasn't in it, but I was just so enthralled with his performance. And then I think I went out the first time I saw him. I don't think I was in it with him. I think we have done it once together, but we would go out to lunch afterward. And I would love. We'd have two show days, and Dean would play Marley. And if you know Marley's, this ghost with the chains, well, there was so much makeup involved. Dean would go to lunch in his Marley makeup. And it was just always so much fun to watch other people watch him.
I
But
bet.
we just became such wonderful friends. And we remain so. So it's been several years now. Um, and he called me and said, there is a project that I would love to work with you on. And he said, I wanted to be sure you were interested before he said, I've already given your name. And I was like, yeah. So, and then it turned out to be this wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well,
Her quid.
yeah, I'm very, very happy that he hooked up. There was one. We're gonna watch a little. We're gonna watch the trailer to that a little bit later, so we won't get into that
Okay.
too much yet.
Mhm.
But yeah. So what year was that?
Oh, now see, um, had to be at least 5 years ago.
Okay.
Is that about right? I mean, you're asking
No,
me to
no.
think
Oh, I'm talking
where I
about when you
met my
met Dean.
Denise.
No, when you met Dean. I know when the
Oh
film
no.
was.
Oh, for Dean was it has to be at least 10, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, it'd have to be a
Been
little bit.
about that long since I've done a Christmas Carol, I think. Probably at least 7 years ago.
Well, so
I've
I,
stopped counting.
well,
Anybody that I've known over 5 years,
that's fair enough. So generally speaking, the idea is that um, you are a multifaceted artist. You sing, which is
yes.
definitely part of what you do. But you are an accomplished actor. That is the reason why I met you originally. So,
Mhm.
which came first?
I have always had a passion for acting. And it's funny because if you had told me I would make a lot of my living through music, I would have said, yes, you're crazy. There were so many amazing voices out there. And as a child or teenager and young adult, most of the voices, especially in musical theater, were all written for sopranos. And I never had a real high, I had probably more of a range than I do now, but I didn't have that voice. So I never saw it was almost like the higher you sing, the better people thought you sang. And I usually tied all of that in together. So I never thought of myself as a solo performer or as a musical, concert type performance. So I did a lot of musical theater, but I always wanted to do straight plays or television and that type of work. Um, for so long, though, the theater community here would only cast me in musicals. So I did a lot of musical theater early on. I remember when the original Star Search came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I auditioned as an actor, with Ed McMahon, and so I got to like the second round, and I was like, oh, and people said you didn't sing, and I was like, never even contemplated or thought about singing as an audition piece. So I've always had a love for singing, but was never as confident that it would be a way, not necessarily to make a living, but would be as fulfilling as I have found it to be now.
That's fantastic. So obviously, people's journey, their history develops. What was some of the earlier uh, musical experiences that you had when you thought, well, I can sing? I mean, I understand what you said about that not being the
Right.
main thing, but at some point you're like, I can carry a tune. I can sing in this group. I can do this. What were some of those early musical experiences?
Um, I remember, I guess my very first production was at the South Dallas Cultural Center some 5 years ago. Uh, and it was called Poe. It was a musical. Um, and so I never hesitated about singing in musical theater. I learned the parts, never learned to read music. I kind of learned along the way as I progressed on the job, if you will. I learned a lot by ear. Um, but that's always worked for me. I, of course, have learned now to follow along better in my years in this business. But even then, it wasn't about, it was like, oh, this is just part of the job. And, it really wasn't until, believe it or not, I started singing at the Hideaway, which was this dirty, smoky. little bar on Buena Vista that changed my life. And
Wow.
I learned to, I found my voice, if you will. And I tell this story so often. I bet there are people, anybody listening or anybody that knows me could tell it for me
Hmm.
because it really did make it was a big difference in performing because it taught me how to perform as me and not as a musical theater character, not being worried about what people thought of me and learning that my voice is unique and it is mine and some will like it, some may not. And just as with any other entertainer, learning that one is not better than the other. We're all just different.
Right.
And so singing at that place and the love and support that I got in that bar and just I tell you what, there is no better place to learn how to deal with hecklers than a bar. Because and being able to decide if you're cut out for this,
Right.
because you either learn how to get ahead of it or you will sink. And I was able to kind of navigate my way, and I met some of the best people in my life in that bar who are still very good friends, associates, peers, um, business associates, business partners and they will remain so for the rest of my life.
That's fantastic.
Mm.
Well, I'm going to see if this works. I'm still learning some stuff, but if you can see your screen, you should be seeing
Yes.
both of us right now,
Yes.
and so tell me what you think about this. Now, my wife streams under the name Mother Merm, and so she's
Okay.
chatting with me right now, and this is what she had to say. Can you see that?
Okay. Okay. Oh, mwah, mwah, mwah. Take it.
You did see it. All right.
I
Yeah.
did. I'll take it. Thank you.
So I think I think there is definitely a point where somebody either figures out how to engage an audience or
Mhm.
they go home because you have to get to that point. I Miriam may or may not appreciate me telling her stories, but I remember I picked before we were married. She was gigging at this place in Abilene with a little combo, a little drummer and a
Uh-huh.
bass player, and her and a keyboard. And it was the ritziest place in town. And I picked her up late one night after one of these gigs, and she was crying. I'm like, what's going on? And I started asking her questions. And in the end, I said, let me get this straight. Three old, drunk, blue haired ladies said you couldn't sing. And I was like, babe, they don't know what they're talking about. I know. And I'm just like, but I mean, it's been fun to watch her progress over the years where, it's not a thing. So
But
it's
you
a
know,
problem. She was very
I
young.
think
She
the
said, I'm
key
very,
to but I think the key to that is, and it took me a long while, and it still takes me a while, is to go in going, I'm coming in here to enjoy myself. I hope you come along. If
right.
not, you won't be back. And if so, I'll see you next week. And that's my thing is I'm here to really, it's not about listening to myself sing, but it's about how the music makes me feel. And that's the journey that I like to take people on.
Well, Miriam just typed in the chat, Amen, sister. So, uh, Thought Storms is the gentleman that you know from, that's his Twitch name. You know him as
Okay.
Keith. He's the big guy that stood there. He's the one that handed you the whiskey. Do you
I
remember that?
know.
Yeah. Okay. So he's interested, always fascinated when people talk about the difference between acting for like TV or screen versus acting on stage.
Hmm.
I know you have done both. What have you learned over the years regarding that? And I guess there's a similarity between recording in a studio versus a live performance. They're different animals to say the least. So let's go
Right.
back to stage acting versus screen acting. You got any observations, things you've learned over the years?
Oh, absolutely. It is so. The only thing that I find to be similar between the two is trying to find your authentic voice and the sincerity. Um, Stage acting is so much bigger. Like to do this in film is like almost way too big. And I had to learn to kind of
Right.
draw down that even just the blink of an eye or moving my head too big is almost too big for theater. I have been on sets where two people are acting and it's because in my phone. And I'm like, nobody's going to be able to hear that when I first started. But you learn that it is so much smaller and it is about just intimate moments as opposed to the moments that you have to make so big so people at the back of the theater
Right.
can see. Um, but you also still though have to find the sincerity and the honest parts of your performance.
Yeah, I think I definitely know what you're talking about. From more of a director standpoint, more of somebody who shoots things, I'm like, hey man, just back. We did a project. Miriam and I are part of a film society here locally. We did a short film as a little project, and almost
Mhm.
everybody, most of the people involved in there had not done that kind of thing before, and
Right.
but a couple of them were definitely. Um, Stage actors. I mean, they had done
Yes.
that and they had never really had that kind of opportunity. And I remember there's this one scene we shot where I literally had a guy whispering, and my camera was right in his face,
Mhm.
and he was just talking too loud. He was a stage actor. I'm like, okay, dude, I promise you, I'll be able to hear and see. Just pull it back. He did, and it worked great. But it was just,
Yeah.
it's not your default when you've been on a stage for the most of
Right.
the time.
Now, I will tell you that I believe some of the best television actors started on stage.
Oh,
Because on stage, you do have to learn how to find those honest, truthful moments because it's live.
right,
Television, you get it the first time, you can reshoot it. So if you start in television, you don't necessarily learn in TV. Yeah, TV people are going to kill me. But
ah,
from my perspective,
that's fair.
to me, for me, that it did not help. It helped be able to do that work, that intimacy work to find that character and what my character wants and needs and that kind of thing, and finding how to get there quickly. Because television, you have to be able to go. If you start the day with a scene that you have to be emotionally distraught, you have to figure a way to get
Right,
there
right,
without the benefit of all of the stuff you've done to lead up to that moment.
right.
So um, I learned specifically how to do that work, and I continue to learn um, to do that. I mean, it's not like, okay, I'm an actress now and I have to stop studying. I have to consistently work on my craft. And that's the joy of it because you learn so much and so many new things. This last production I did at the Theater Center with my director, Tiana K. Blair, who does this process called soul work, which is an acting technique. And I had never, it's based in African American traditions on call and response. I think it never worked that way. And it really changed a lot about how I will approach characters from here on out.
Does it help if someone is familiar with that as well when you're interacting with them, or if they have some idea of what you're doing or why you're doing what you're doing, or is it just effective to the point that anybody you're acting with, whether or not they know you're thinking that way and approaching it from that uh, that I don't know,
Mhm.
form, is that the right
Or
term?
that's, yeah, that, well, and it's like any other technique. For instance, if an actor studies Meisner, a Meisner technique or something, you don't go on and go, okay, who else has studied Meisner? So let's, do this together. It is a way that I have learned now to incorporate into my process what I learned from Tiana. What she did was she kind of gave all of us and said, this is how I work. So we all learned, the fundamental part of it. It would have taken a lot longer to teach us how to really be deeply involved. And it's an ongoing study. But um, I think a lot of the things that I learned, the warm up techniques and feeling a character in my body and all of that, I learned just a different way as to how to really incorporate that and to be able to use that for myself when I'm on a set that maybe no one else understands that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I remember having some long conversations. I don't know how long, but they felt long because I felt the weight of the conversation as I was having it, and I think it made it feel longer. But talking to Dean is he teaches acting, he teaches
Yes.
directing, and he when I was directing the short film, he was telling me how he wanted to be directed. And it was totally appropriate. I mean, and so I my assumption is I wasn't as awful as I might have been if I had not taken his advice. I'm not going to ask you to say whether or not I was any good at directing when we did that film, but it was a very fulfilling process for me, and I think the product ended up being pretty quality. And I tell people when I said the reason this worked is that we had somebody who knew how to act. We had people who actually acted, and then we had somebody who could actually shoot it. And I said, if you don't have those two things, it's not going to work as well, to say the least. So, to say the least.
I think we bring out good things in each other. I would like to think I can work with any director as long as they're respectful. I think that actors and directors all bring something to the table, and actors should bring something to the table. I think that if a director wants a really good performance, I hope they're open to collaborations or suggestions. I get the director has a vision when they get there, but I think they hire an actor to also bring their perspectives. You can see this is how I'm keeping somebody quiet.
So what's the name? Who are we looking at?
This is Suge Avery.
Suge Avery.
Or Suge Knight, depending on her attitude.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
This is Suge, and she's 2 years old today, so she has been spoiled all day. And to keep her quiet, she's in my lap.
Well, she is
look
welcome.
At me, the minute you came on, your voice, she was like, "Oh yeah, it's on now. I'm going to get my let's play."
Right. So, I wasn't too sure exactly what order to go in, but one of the requests that came in through the chat is specifically about tertium quid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this, and we're going to watch and listen to this together. Let me see if I can pull this screen up first. Let's see. I can do this without getting too far into the... So this is the trailer, everyone. And the trailer is relatively short. And you're going to see Denise playing two distinct roles. So if you see it, what's funny is that when... well, we'll talk about that later. I'm just going to hit play. We'll just watch
I know
it.
where you're going.
Yeah. And it's awesome. So here we go.
I assume you've had plenty to drink and not too much?
Yes.
Then let's get started. Everybody wants to be their own guru. Everybody come in, toting their little notebook, searching for the meaning of life. These are like used shoes. They look comfortable, but once you put them on, they don't fit you.
What is the problem?
You're the problem. Do the math. I just don't think you have the time.
Does that bring back memories?
Yes, it does. So much fun.
Yeah. Well, I hope everybody could hear that. It wasn't quite. It had it has a different audio level because there's such a dynamic range on that. But do you remember one of the components about that short film from the musical side of it? Do you remember that aspect of the two characters you played? The music that goes with both of them? I know it was a long time ago, Denise. If you don't, it's fine.
I remember, well, when we were just talking and we were listening to that other music, it was very distinctive, the guitar and the riff and the feel of it. And even though if I don't specifically remember the music, I remember the feeling of it. So when you played that other music, I was like, that sounds very tertium quid. So it is like, that's what it reminds me of. Well, I might not remember the exact, lick or music, but it gave it a very, almost, it was like a juke joint, New Orleans in the beginning, that feel, but then there was a difference when I was the character going through the book, because it was such a fascinating premise. Tell people the premise. I don't want to get it wrong.
All right. So Thought Storms said something nice about you guys, so I thought I'd share that with you. Now, Thought Storms is an actor, stage actor as well. So he when he says that, it actually means it more than just general Joe Blow on. So the specific thing that was happening is that there were two characters. Salome was in the bar, representing the unconscious. This is all very much tied into Jungian thought, Carl Jung. And so the unconscious was represented by the character Salome. You were in the bar, and all the music in the bar was blues.
Yes.
And then you played Carla, which is the female version of Carl Jung. And that was cerebral. That was all in your head. And that was classical piano in the back. And so when you switch between these two scenes, that was always the music. The music went along with these different characters. It was intended to be very symbolic, and it subconsciously works as well. Even if you have no idea what we're trying to do, it definitely had its effect. And so the music.
I was going to say, remember, because I remember when I first watched, because on set, you have no idea when how it's all going to come together. And I remember the effect and the impact it had in listening to it as we watched it.
Well, it was a pleasure to work on that. We won't spend a whole lot more time talking about that. But the music in the trailer we just watched was the blues. There's no I don't remember I don't know if you remember this at all, but the piano that was used in the final track, my daughter was on set helping in the production. She was one of the assistant producers, and her name is Morgan, but that was from her classical piano album. She's the one that actually played that music.
You telling me.
Yeah. So it's a really good album. It was when she was young. She doesn't. It's funny because she talks about not being able to play that stuff anymore because it's not easy, but it's beautiful. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
I'm distracted by chat. I haven't developed the. Keith's wonderful in chat. So he says basically Sigmund Freud can't avoid being somewhat annoyed if you are Jung at heart. That's good. Good for you,
yes,
Keith.
That is.
Very, very, very clever stuff by Keith. That's his thing. So let's go back. Now, that said, that was a request. Actually, I'm going to bring this up real quick. Let's see. I've got too many windows open. Let's see. I'm going to go to this. So this is a little aside. This is not specifically about Denise, but it's about the channel. One of the things that we have on Twitch is the ability for songwriters, people who do music stuff on Twitch. There's this song list where you can make song requests. And I don't do music, but I am using the same system that everybody uses for that. And the song request was tertium quid. So these are topics. And Keith put that into the system. So you see it down at the bottom of the screen, title,
Yeah.
or tertium quid requested by. And so now you see in this window, I don't know if it shows you. No, it's not showing. I'm going to click, and then that goes away. And we are now, that just, see, that goes across the, you can't see it, the very bottom, that song request, which was tertium quid, we did. And I clicked it off. So somebody can go to SL in, let's see, in the chat and pull up a bunch of different topics. Those are primarily when I'm just doing the non-interview ones, but there are other things in there that are kind of interesting. So that's part of the Twitch thing. Just letting my audience
Twitch
know.
Oh, it's like Twitch. I know one other person on Twitch, and I think I actually set up an account so I can follow Donald Weber, who plays in Hamilton. He plays, and who's not Hamilton? I can't believe I can't. Aaron. Oh, I'm sorry, Donald. Aaron Burr in Hamilton, and he has a Twitch radio set. I was like, what is this? And it got too complicated. And so I stopped. But now you have brought me back to it. My family asked me, what is Twitch? I was like, I have no idea. I just know this is where you go to listen. So,
well, it's like an interactive YouTube.
Okay.
That's what it is. It's and the thing is most of the interaction is watching somebody play World of Warcraft or some sort of video game, and you go to because the vast majority of Twitch is gaming. It's not primarily music or talking or anything like that. It is primarily gaming. And you can go to some channel and watch somebody play, and there'll be 10,000 people watching somebody play a video game. Blow your mind.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. Okay.
Well, I mean, if somebody's really good, and you
we
want to
all
get
gotta
better,
have our thing. We all gotta have our. Okay.
All right, so got a question from Muy Della Loca, and it's, do you still do acting and singing today? And that's a very good transition. Tell us about what you've got going on. I've got a list of things, but I'll let you tell us a little bit about that. What are you doing today, music-wise and otherwise?
I do. I mean, this is my primary job, which means I have to do a little bit of everything to make a living, but I love it. It keeps me busy. Right now, let's see, and everything usually hits in spurts, right? So when we finish here, I have a rehearsal tonight because I have a cabaret show at Salmon Center for the Arts on Thursday. And it was 10 years ago this year, I was honored to be named Salmon Center for the Arts Cabaret Artist of the Year. And I performed a show called Divas of American Music. I'm putting my baby down. Divas of American Music. And so this show is kind of called The Divas Are Back. And what I'm going to do is an homage to women, female singers and songwriters, icons that influenced me. And for Black History Month, they will be all women of color. So I am so excited to be able to perform this. So there'll be some older artists, newer artists. I'll be doing things from like Nina Simone to India Arie to Shirley Bassey to Irene Cara. So it will all be it's a variety of music of people who inspired me on my musical journey.
So where is Salmon's located?
Salmon Center for the Arts is off of Harry Hines. Okay. It sits up on a hill. It's at Harry Hines in Oakmont. There is, and you can go to, if you look up Salmon Center for the Arts, it is SAMMONS for the Arts, and I think it's .org. And you can go online, or you can, on their website, it gives you a phone number. There's usually...
And it's this Thursday. It's not this
Thursday
weekend.
Night.
Thursday night.
Thursday night at 8:00. They have a wonderful cabaret series that there are 4 shows in the season. They do 4 shows, take a break, and then do 4 in the fall. And so I'm opening up this spring season. I was scheduled to do the show in last November to close out their season, and I got pneumonia. So could not do that. So they were
sad
asking me back this week. So I'm doing that. And then next Wednesday during the day, I believe it's at 12:30. I'm doing a set with Dr. Mike Bogle at Cedar Valley College for their students. They have like a salon where their students come in, we video it, and I do a set of music and kind of answer questions. And so Mike is going to accompany me. It'll be just me on piano with some really cool songs.
Is Mike primarily a keyboardist, or is he?
Well, he's a professor of music at Cedar Valley, so he plays a little bit of everything: keyboard, trombone. He's also, I'm taking a class from him at Cedar Valley right now, at 5 o'clock today, I have my Zoom piano lesson.
Okay.
Which I'm excited about. And then as far as acting, I still do. I did a show in October for the Theater Center called Trouble in Mind. And I will start rehearsal for a show at the Dallas Children's Theater on the 20th called Last Stop on Market Street. We had rehearsed and done one preview of that show right as the world closed. And so they put it on hold, and we are bringing it all back starting in, I believe it's in March. Yep, we open in March and run through the first week of April. So all of those things are going on. And then, I have a nonprofit as well. So just a lot, but that's how I roll.
So we'll get back to the nonprofit, I promise.
Okay.
Now that that's been said, or that was brought up, I am going to, you mentioned something about this, Trouble in Mind.
Yes.
You see that? So there's some pictures I pulled off the web of our lovely guests today.
Yeah, those were, and then the ones on the left are me as Billie Holiday, that I did Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill.
Okay.
And in that album or CD cover, George Wada took those photos. That was the very first time I played Billie Holiday. No, I lied. That was the second time. I've played her 3 times. I have done, the first time was at Water Tower Theater, when I swear I didn't know what I was doing, scared to death, but was happy to have that opportunity. The second time was at Contemporary Theater of Dallas, which is now closed. And then the final time, which I had kind of grown into who I was as an actor and felt more confident and felt like, okay, now I kind of understand who she is and I'm able to bring so much more. I did it at Jubilee Theater in Fort Worth. And so that CD cover, though, George allowed me to use that photo for my cover of my Divas of American Music, which was a celebration of, again, singers and songwriters, women, American singers and songwriters, who, as I did so much research, I found like in the Songwriter Hall of Fame, there were only like 16 women out of 400. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. Yeah, it was crazy. And so this was about, I haven't looked again because it was an online thing. It's not an award, that's given. But I was so shocked to find, so I wanted to be sure that I paid tribute to those women. And so I talk about Carole King as a songwriter, and I talk about how, she wrote that song, but then sometimes a singer can take a song.
Right, exactly.
There's like Natural Woman became Aretha Franklin.
Sure. Yeah.
And absolutely. So that Nina Simone, Barbra Streisand. So, and I have done just some kind of reincarnation of that show several times because there's so many women that have defined music for me in so many ways. Whether it were voices that aren't what that people don't consider, naturally beautiful voices, which I think all voices are beautiful because they all bring something to the table. Or if there was somebody like, Whitney Houston, which I said I was going to do a Whitney Houston show and call it Songs That Should Never Be Redone.
Fair enough. Of course you're redoing them in that process. That's a fairly interesting twist. All right, so I want you to look at your screen and tell me if you have any idea who this might be. The name at the bottom.
Dixie.
KDB Maestro. Do you have any idea? Do you know who that is?
I haven't. Speaking of, performing with the New Texas Symphony Orchestra. Kathy typed the date. I believe it's March
March 12th.
12th. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I believe we're going to be down at Moody, and I'm singing some Disney villain songs and just some, but just not all villains, if you will. Now, I guess it depends on what you call a villain. I don't think Ursula sees herself as a
Yeah, exactly. Just doing the obvious things that need to be done.
right, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, so Kathy is the artistic director and conductor of the New Texas Symphony Orchestra, and I had the honor of performing with them several years ago. And they have invited me back, and I am so excited. Thank you. I thought it was at Moody Performance. And Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to say how much tickets are, but I think they are. I'm gonna let her type.
Well, get it from somebody who knows.
They are, and I should have been better prepared.
It's all good. We're both figuring this stuff out. So I want to let you know that I hope that this experience will be enjoyable enough that once I actually get my act together and have done this for a while, we will revisit and check back in with Denise Lee. And you will have done this before, have an idea, and then you can promote whatever, even better.
So we always need promotion.
Yeah, the tickets are free.
That's what I didn't want to say the free word until that's what tickets are. Yes. But
yes.
All of the tickets are free. They are a wonderful organization. I highly encourage you to look up the New Texas Symphony Orchestra, and they do such amazing work. And I love singing and performing with them. So I'm honored to be there on the 12th.
That's fantastic. So I do want this to be a positive experience for you. I do want it to be engaging. I want the audience to enjoy it as well. But this is a little bit of it's not a kiss up. I just want to make sure you don't miss this one because this was said as well in the chat. And
okay.
Isn't that nice?
That is so sweet. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Well, that is a very, very, very sweet person who happens to also be my mother-in-law.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah, you definitely want to do that. Jake, my son, says it's great to see your face. Much love from San Antonio. So,
Well, I appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll include some more links and stuff when I post this. Of course, by the time I actually get this all out there, I don't know if it'll be in time for the Thursday thing, but the other stuff. Okay, so at some point we're going to share some links and stuff, but let me get back to this page, and so let's. Oops, that is not what I'm on the wrong page. There we go. So what's going on with this? This is obviously. What's this?
Oh my gosh! You see that? That's the thing with the internet. That makeup was, oh my God, again, I cannot remember the name. Oh, I'm gonna have to, when I'm going to find that link and send it to you. It was a short film that I did. And these women who were in prison, and all of them actually were dead. And so for a long time, you only saw one side of my face as I talked. And it was kind of like a sixth sense thing as I turned to the other side and you saw this, but it was through history, different women through history, and they told each of their stories. It was a fascinating look. And so that was the makeup artist's picture of her work. I was sitting in her chair. And fascinating. Now the two have nothing to do with each other.
No, I know that. I know that. What I was intending to do was this, and ask people. You post things. You go to events all the time, and you're like a reporter. So you were obviously going to this black tie dinner, and you have your your name on, is that the ticket or was that just a graphic that you posted?
No, that was a graphic. I was the recipient of the Ally of the Year award for Black Tie.
Oh, very
I
good.
is an organization that raises funds and donates money to LGBTQI plus organizations and supports their efforts of supporting that community. And I have been a big ally and supporter in that community for most of my life and much of my career, and continue to do so, to be an advocate for equal rights and justice for that community. And I was honored with the Dale Hansen Ally of the Year award
That's
that year.
awesome.
It was an award named for Dale Hansen, who received the first award. It's an award they don't award every year, but this last year I was very honored to receive that. And so that was me as I was giving my speech.
Well, I just, you are regularly posting all kinds of things about things you're going to, events you're going to, hanging out with people. You're very, very good at the selfies with different people. So on your on your Facebook pages, on your personal Facebook page, and on your Denise Lee on Stage Facebook page, there are tons of events and stuff. That was really kind of a placeholder to remind me to say, hey, this lady is doing all kinds of stuff. So let's look at this. Tell us about this.
That was part of Trouble in Mind at the Theater Center. That was that play. We did that in last October, and it was a play written in the 50s out by Alice Childress, and it was written about actors. It's a play within a play. It was written in at the time, at modern times, if you will, if that makes sense. It was written in the 50s for that period of time. The challenge was these actors who wanted to be have legitimate careers, were still being relegated to mammy type roles. And so they would come into rehearsal, these very distinguished actors who were only hired to play these roles, these subservient roles. And so there were different generations of actors. If you saw in those pictures, it was myself, another actor whose name was Sheldon. That's the gentleman on the right. Jeremy on the left played Manners, who was the director. And so what we were being told to do was, like, Sheldon had an image of, like, I've got to work, so I have to play this role. Then there were younger actors in the play who were very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about how we get along. And my character, Willetta Mayer, was this actor who had just always played the role. And then at some point, she realized, this is not what I want to do. I want to be a legitimate actress, and I bring more to this than just the yes sir, no sir type of way that we're being directed. And this conflict evolves between she and the director, who is this director who really thinks he's doing them a service by producing colored theater and getting them work, in his own words, and then telling her that, he can't produce what she wants to tell about herself because the audience doesn't want to see it. Now, the irony behind this is, in this play that Alice wrote, the play within the play, the two have this confrontation where she says she's tired of these stereotypes and these parts, these character parts, if you will, which are all very stereotypical. And he says, but I can't tell the truth about you because the audience thinks they're superior and they don't want to hear it. Well, at the time that it was written, the producers, they had a very successful off-Broadway run, and scheduled to go to Broadway. And as they were rehearsing for Broadway, the producers said, could you temper the speech that Willetta gives at the end? We need to make this more palatable for a white audience. And when Alice Childress refused to do that, they canceled the Broadway run. So basically, what she wrote in her play, they did to her. They said that, no, it won't. And so she was slated to be the first African-American woman produced on Broadway. And then that honor went to Lorraine Hansberry 3 years later with Raisin in the Sun. This play did not get produced. It finally made its Broadway debut in 2021, and LaShance played Willetta Mayer. And so the Dallas Theater Center brought the production here. And I hope that other theaters will do. I think it's one of the most produced plays of the last year because it has such an important message to talk about as we did the work on there, how things really haven't changed much. To fight for roles that show us in very dignified ways where we aren't always singing and dancing. And while that's wonderful to have music, there are so many wonderful stories of who we are that have never been produced. To kind of tell stories about people of color and African Americans that haven't been produced. So it was one of the most important pieces I think that I've done in my career.
Well, it looks like, I mean, you look fabulous in those pictures, and uh, I know you, and
Yes.
while you are very, very nice, I also think you could probably project some confidence and some gravitas when necessary and make your point. And I don't know this play, but I just have this suspicion you were really good at it. So,
I'd like to think it was a really wonderful, very fulfilling production. We got wonderful feedback. We got talkbacks following because it is a performance, a show that needs talkback. Because it leaves you with questions at the end, like what happens to the cast because of the way the play ends. The theater center also held, we did in conjunction with my nonprofit, we did a community conversation once the play closed, and like 60 people who had seen the play came back to have this conversation to talk about this and talk about racism in theater and roles and discrimination and that type of thing, just to have a really open look at where we were, where we are, and where we need to go.
well, I think there are um, so many ways that people figure out how to be awful to other people.
Right.
It's a very, very long list, and I think the more people can encounter and appreciate, because all of our worlds are so limited. Your world is different than my world. The people you encounter, where you go, just what it's always amazing to me that there are so many lives being lived simultaneously that never overlap in any way. And then even those we do overlap with rarely have a serious understanding of what's going on in our experience. Good, bad,
Right.
trivial, substantial. I mean, it's a mind boggling thing. And the idea, the act, you have to, it's not, I don't know that it's human nature to, to be empathetic. I think there are empathetic character traits that more people have than others. I mean, not to be empathetic, but the propensity to be able to see perspectives other than their
Right.
own.
Well,
And
I think
it's a practice. You have to activate that and go, I need to think about this a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think social media has kind of taken that away from us as well. The fact that we don't see people eye to eye and talk to them face to face anymore. It's about typing and people interpreting tone. So I think that our children are growing up in a generation where they haven't been able to develop empathy, because I think that comes in your development as you learn to talk and work out differences and problem solve. Every day I sound more and more like my mom and my grandmother. So
It's great.
I was a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If
Fair
I came
enough.
back and said, Wanda made me mad, my mother said, go work it out. And
Yeah.
we figured it out. We played in the streets. We worked it out. We didn't yell at each other on social media till it built up so much that people were ready to shoot each other, you
Yeah.
know? And I think, too, being desensitized and seeing so much violence and what our kids have um, access to, that it's not even to me, if I had seen a shooting or even hearing about a shooting as a teenager, was devastating. And now it's almost a part of our daily where we go, oh, another shooting, that's horrible. And we continue on with our lives. So I think hopefully by encouraging conversation, because we also tend to live in echo chambers. When you said, how our lives never cross, we encounter people at work, but how deeply do we encounter them?
Mhm.
A friend of mine suggested, and one of the things when we say the term friend, I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean by friend? Because my goal is for people that I call friend, they're my refrigerator friends. And those are people who can come to my house and go to my refrigerator without asking permission.
That's a pretty good definition.
And so those to me are friends. I have associates, and I still say friend, but I have acquaintances. Um, if you're a friend of mine, I should know your middle name. It depends on level of what you call levels of friendship and how we define those. And so often when one person goes, oh yeah, it's a friend of mine, and that other person may have a whole different definition of what friend is.
Right.
And so I think we have to rethink how we use words and how we throw that around, especially when we use it to try to describe who we are as people.
I agree. There's nothing to add. So there's a couple of things as you were talking that
Yes.
led to some more personal questions.
Okay.
When you were younger, who was the person you were going to go work it out with? You mentioned someone's name. Who was that? You said your mom said go work it out. So who?
Oh, that was actually Wanda was a girl that lived down the street. I don't know where
Okay.
I don't know what happened to her.
Okay.
But I mean, and I used her name because she's the one that I remembered us playing with so often. We would play in the streets, play kickball, and and I don't know if we ever had a fight or a disagreement, but I think all kids at that age were playing and I don't want to play anymore. Take my ball and go home,
So,
and then we went back the next day.
okay, so also we were talking about names, knowing people's middle names. So one of the things when I was asking some stuff beforehand, you go by M. Denise Lee,
Yes,
right? So
I do
tell people what you say M stands for.
Well, let me tell you why first.
No,
Because
I know why. I want to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean why I go by because I've been called Denise all my life by my family. That's my middle name. So I joke at people who sometimes assist. Denise, we're friends. I say, what's the middle name? I don't know. And so, but I've gone by Denise. But when I went to register with Actors Equity, there was already a Denise Lee. And so you can't have the same name. So I used the initial of my first name. And so it's just M. Denise Lee for Actors Equity. So that's on my headshots. And I would walk into a room for an audition, and the director might, to make small talk, would go, oh, M. Denise Lee, what does M stand for? And I would very confidently say,
That's right. I love that.
And directors would go, okay, that's
Yeah.
nice several times.
Well, I have basically done the same thing. I put J. Matt Wallace on everything now, and it feels super pretentious when I sign things that way. But to me, because I'm Matt, my middle name, I go by my middle name as well, and so. But there are a bunch of Matt Wallace's in IMDb, the International Movie Database.
Yeah.
And so I created my account as J. Matt Wallace. And if you do a search on J. Matt Wallace, you will find me because it goes straight to me and it doesn't go anybody else. Now, if you do J. Matthew Wallace, you get like an actor. But so that's why I started using the J. Matt Wallace, is because they're just too. There's one of the producers. Do you remember the group Faith No More? The music group Faith No More?
I remember the name. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a '90s thing, but their producer was Matt Wallace, and so there were friends of mine who knew that we had recording studios and we were doing all this music stuff, and they would do searches and find that, and they'd go, "You," they would start saying, "You did that," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did that." Oh, I didn't ever say that, but I mean, that is so. Very
Denise,
good.
yeah, and so, but I can tell you, my first name is Maria, and I can't begin to tell you how many teachers, with their perception of what Maria was supposed to look like,
Oh,
when
okay.
at first day of school, Maria, because when we signed into school, I always put Maria Deasley, and in school I went by Maria pretty much till I got older. But I can't tell you how many elementary school teachers on the first day would go, Maria, and I raise my hand. No, I didn't call you. I was looking for Maria, and they're looking for some little Hispanic or Mexican girl to stand up, as opposed to believing that Maria was my first name.
Well, my sister-in-law is her married name is Teresa Maria Gomez,
Mm-hmm.
and she is a white girl.
So
and,
that
and
just
they
throws people off
yeah,
from
they always start people start walk up to her and start speaking Spanish. And she's
say,
like,
oh, the
sorry.
assumptions we make.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It's a fair assumption. I mean, come on.
No,
Teresa
not
Maria
anymore.
Gomez. All right. Well, you're right. I mean, the evidence
And there
is,
was a time, yes,
yeah.
but not anymore. But,
Yeah, yeah.
because when we were, when we lived separate, a lot of times segregated communities, even past that time. But nowadays, you can't look at somebody or read a name and
Yeah.
can't tell you how many Keishas I've met that are not of African American descent. I cannot, or Marias who are not Hispanic. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
fair enough.
now, no assumptions, none.
Very good. So, I had a request or a question much earlier that I'm going to get to, and
Okay.
let's see if I can. I don't have to put all these up on the screen, but I'm just practicing. Just what's your top
Yeah.
favorite
And look,
gigs?
and with me and my cute contacts, I have to lean into my screen because
It's all good.
forget.
I can just tell you what it is, and we're gonna
Oh,
limit it. We're gonna limit it to music.
okay.
Not acting gigs. What are three of your favorite gigs that you would and tell us about them a little bit and talk about what was happening musically, even though the music may not have been what made it the favorite gig.
Okay. I'm trying to think two music. I've got two off the top, and I swear I'm not saying this because I know Kathy's listening, but my performance with the symphony with them, I so want to, I want it to be my exit plan. I think I mentioned this to Kathy, so she knows I'm telling the truth. So if there's symphony orchestras around listening, I would love to tour the country singing with symphony orchestras. The experience, that was the very first time I had sung with a symphony. And the experience that I had was amazing. Kathy allowed me to pick out some of my own music. She picked out some music. She picked out some things that were incredibly challenging. But they pushed me, and she knows exactly what song I mean. Um, and but it challenged me. We had fun with it, but it was there's just a glorious, if you will, about singing, with being wrapped in that music as you perform. And I because they're all around you, so you do feel like you're wrapped in that. And it is just glorious. So that was one of my favorites. Um, the other was when I produced, and we're going to start that again soon. So please follow me in the next couple of months. You will hear how we're going to revamp our cabaret series. But when I started producing my cabaret series and we were at Fair Park, we had done 4 shows. We had 5 shows scheduled. We had done 4 shows, and the very first one, we had about 70 people and an average of about 65 to 70 people who would come to the cabaret shows. And I loved it. So I was closing out our series the first year, and I did a show called Too Old, Too Fat, Too Black, Songs I'll Never Sing on Broadway. And so as we were trying to plan for seating, the guy that worked, there was only one person that represented, Fair Park, and said, put 100 chairs. Really? And I went, yeah, well, I'll leave it up to you, but I'm saying about 100. 500 people showed up.
Wow.
We had people, I wish I could find you a picture. I tell you, as we're sitting here, I will find it. I was looking at it just the other day. We had people hanging from the rafters at Fair Park. It was pretty darn amazing. And I was blown away because I laughed in at that poor little guy who didn't want to sit down 100 chairs, was looking everywhere to find a table or chair. He was running around all by himself trying to figure out, oh my God, where will I find stuff?
Fantastic. When was that?
That was probably about 6 years ago at the Women's Building at Fair Park when we did it there. So while we're talking, if you don't mind me looking down, because it's a fabulous picture and of and it was one of my favorite moments on stage because I stood there and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is the biggest audience I've ever played to. And it was just really pretty phenomenal. So.
Well, if you find it on that computer or whatever you're on, I made it so you can share an image if you decide to.
Okay, I would go ahead, or I might I'm on my phone looking for it, and I may send it to you in Messenger.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
We could go. I mean, we could do this forever. But I think. Oh, and I think maybe my third, as I try to think of there was a moment that my friend Liz Michael and I shared on stage, and I actually will share this with you now. That.
So while you were doing that, looking down, I did I am still learning the buttons. I toggled through a whole bunch of pages I didn't mean to put on the screen. So you're going to send it to me on my.
I just sent you the one I'm about to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. I got to figure out how to get this on the stream quickly.
Well, and you know what? I cheated because you just told me that you wanted me to limit that to music. So it wasn't music, but it was a show called Ain't Nothing But the Blues. That Water Tower Theater. And it featured me and Liz Michael, who so often people would not allow us. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I was going to skip over this moment. I performed at Carnegie Hall in July. Duh. That's me.
You enjoyed that.
I can't believe I forgot that. That might be at the top of the list.
Well, cool.
I forgot to mention that. Yes, I'm just now embarrassed because I was like, did I really not mention Carnegie Hall in the top 3 of the Turtle Creek Chorale invited me to be part of their Let's March On series, which was about highlighting and lifting up Black voices. And they told the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre in a piece that was done. And they invited me to sing part of that, and also to sing this wonderful song at Carnegie Hall called "The Journey Isn't Over," with those 200 amazing voices of those amazing men behind me. And during the rehearsal process, I stood on that stage to rehearse it, and I sang it full out. And Sean, the conductor, said, "You might want to save some of that." I said, I cannot take for granted an opportunity to stand on the stage where people whose shoulders I stand on stood and not give it everything I have anytime I have an opportunity. And it brought tears to my eyes to stand.
That's fantastic.
It was amazing.
So the photo you forwarded me was or was not tied to that? I'm trying to keep my story straight. Okay.
That was the one for Liz Michael and I sang "Strange Fruit," a Sheila Walker arrangement for a show called Ain't Nothing But the Blues. And just an honor to share with my sister, Liz Michael, who is right now on the first national Broadway tour of an all-female version of 1776. And she plays Benjamin Franklin.
All right.
Yes. And so I just sent you picture from Carnegie Hall.
Let's see.
Going through this with us.
I gotta get faster at this.
Oh no, it's okay. I appreciate you having the patience to wait as I go through.
Okay, so let me get this. There we go. Now we go back to here. Is this it?
Yes, that was me. And if there's some better pictures, I am sure. As I try to go through this quickly, cannot find them. But that was just a shot that a friend of mine sent me.
Well, hold it. What about this?
That would be a good one.
That's the top of your Denise.
That's on that's on my page. I forgot about that. So yeah.
Denise Lee on stage on Facebook.
That's my Facebook. Yeah, so please follow me there.
It's got all kinds of pictures and some of the same stuff we just looked at. That's all there, so you can check that out. But that's a fantastic picture right there.
It was such an honor to stand on that stage. It just really, really was.
Well, I saw the background when I saw that photo, and I immediately thought, I think that's Carnegie. But but then I forgot to even ask. So that's fantastic. I've been to Carnegie a couple of times, and it's a special place.
Just a little. Just a little. I'm still gonna find that picture now, just because. But keep on. Yeah, switch it. Now it's permission. But go ahead.
Well, let me see. I'm going to change gears a little bit.
Okay.
And we're going to get back to the acting stuff a little bit here in a little, because I want to share a little bit of a story that I think you and I have in common. But in the meantime, actually, I gotta remember when I was doing this earlier, we had ads on.
Yes.
So I'm going to mute this and assume that there's going to be an ad that pops up so that nobody can hear the ad for a while. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm going to go to your dadgummit, SoundCloud. I feel like I'm getting old. I can't remember the most basic thing. There's a bunch of music on SoundCloud that is there any particular I'm going to go to this so you can see if you can lean in. Is there any particular song in particular? I mean, one that I might want to hit play on? Are you smiling?
Goodness.
You haven't looked at these in a while, have you?
I will tell you, I did the very first CD I did was the Someday Now, which I had no idea what I was doing. So maybe there. Then the second CD I did was Divas of American Music. Yes. And then the third one was the just the two of us, where there are duets with some of my favorite people. And there's a song on that CD called Hold On. They were all show tunes.
Okay.
There's a song on that Dr. Tim Seelig of Turtle Creek Chorale turned into a choral piece called Hold On is on that CD.
I'm trying to find the whole. I thought it was going to bring up the whole CD when I clicked on that.
Turned it into a choral piece that we got to sing as a tribute to Dr. Maya Angelou.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's a pretty cool moment too.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Albums.
When I tell you, I've been very blessed, very fortunate to have people present me with some opportunities. And a lot of people who are listening know Gary Floyd, who is my musical soulmate.
Error in your eyes. What you do then is remember this old thing you heard me say. It's the storm, not you, that's bound to blow away. Hold on to someone standing by. Hold on, don't even ask how long or why. Child, hold on to what you know is true. Hold on till you get through. Child, oh child,
All right, so I will encourage people. I'll put some links out there associated with the video that we do, so that people can find a whole bunch of music. They can listen to you sing quite a bit. And
Thank you.
sorry I botched all that, guys. You got to hear it eventually.
The editing will happen.
So here's what my initial thing was to record my own copies of this.
Okay.
And store them on a file that I would then pull up so that I would have more control over it. But then I thought, I need to go straight to where these things are located so that people can find them and know what they're looking for.
Uh-huh.
And so I decided not to do that. And now I've decided that was a bad idea.
That was the best. See, now you can just learn.
Yeah, I am learning.
And they are coming along with us on this learning journey.
Yes, we're all going to learn together. I think the people in chat are like, I don't need to learn this. Just Matt, get your act together. But no, there is a lot of. I'm going to turn the music's off so I don't have to worry about ads coming back up. But there are a bunch of tracks out here on SoundCloud, and it is soundcloud.com/Denise Lee. That'll get you there.
I know. You never could have told me that I'd be recording CDs, but he and suggested, he said, if you ever want to do a CD, I'd love to produce it. I went, okay. And I picked some songs that I love. Bridge Over Troubled Water, I think Stormy Monday. Never been in a studio to record. I'd never done any of that. So that first CD is kind of, in my opinion, but because I've, now that I've kind of grown and learned, but I'm still proud of it because we just stepped out on faith and did it.
You did it. It.
And that's the important thing.
Well, I know that the first album that Miriam and I recorded in 1987 was awful. Well, I mean, there was a certain amount of technical limitations to what was available to normal people in the late 80s, sound quality wise. It was impossible to get a good piano sound at that point. You started getting like better sampled piano sounds on electric keyboards, in the early 90s. It was better. But so it was awful. I mean, but we did it. And then we did, that was Christmas. And then we did a hymns album that we stepped it up a notch. And we were so proud of it. And I remember some producer friends of ours in Dallas, we had them listen to it. And we were so excited to hear them tell us how wonderful it was. And they were like, that's nice. They were, and when by our standards now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, they were so nice to us to not, laugh in our face, because it was pretty awful.
Okay, so, I'm proud of myself. I found the picture.
All right, let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see.
I'm like a dog with a bone, and what if I get it? I'm like, I'm going to find this picture.
All right, so there are two pictures. Is that correct?
They're both from that concert at the Women's Building.
All right, so this is
the Too Old, Too Fat, Too Black. And if you will look at the top on the left, those are people sitting.
All right.
The stairs.
Yeah, I see that. And there's the other angle.
Yeah. And so that's that's me right down at the front, and that's showing from the other side. And just such a wonderful night of music, and kind of when you talk about why I do what I do, when you look out at that audience, and I saw a reflection of what our world actually is. People caring who they sat next to, not caring who people voted for. They were all having just a great time enjoying music together. And that's what music does.
It does. It absolutely does. So, I mean, I'm just going to go for it, given what you just said. Tell me, why do you love music?
Because of the way it helps me navigate my feelings. There is a song for every emotion I have ever had in my life. Whether it was a loss of a family member, whether it was a boyfriend breakup, whether it was the birth of my children, uh, every emotion, getting older, it is, there are songs that I can play that I relate to, that help me sometimes understand my own feelings, songs that convey how I feel better than I could ever articulate them. And so being able to sing those songs uh, to people who might need that same thing. I tend to go with my gut. My music director, I told you, Buddy Shanahan played for me for 10 years, and he passed away sadly about 10 years ago. And I'm convinced he sent Norman Williams to me, who is my music director and who will be my music director for this show on Thursday, because Norman, he knows how I work, and he allows me to work that way without being frustrated, because I'm sure I could really frustrate a musician. But what I love about Norman is he knows that I don't ever like to do a boxed set. This is just how we're going to do it. And these are the things I'm going to say. Most times I will pick a set of songs and I'll say, talk about this, talk about this. I think it's important when you sing and when you talk to an audience, you know your room. So what I might have written to say may not fit the people who are in that room or the way they're reacting to me. So, I literally read the room when I perform. I literally interpret songs the way I'm feeling in that moment. There have been times I have picked the song and I've said, Norman, I don't think I want to do that one. One, because I didn't think I could do it justice in the moment. Two, I don't think it was what the audience was feeling, or it would either bring the room down or it might take away from a moment that we were in. I'll change the order of songs at some point, or I might add a song, and Norman goes right with me. And the musicians that I work with go right with me. And I'm just blessed to work with some of the best. Lawrence Farrell and Nigel Rivers, Rob Holbert, David Brasher. Those guys are there. It is amazing to have the support of musicians who love what they do enough to allow you to do what you do.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, it definitely takes a certain skill level to allow someone to do that. I mean, you've got to have people who are confident enough in what they're doing to call an audible and it work. And there's definitely a different vibe when you're working with people who don't get flustered by changes. And you can definitely feel it immediately when someone is not comfortable with getting off script.
And there's sometimes I get, but the reason I love the cabaret aspect of what I do so much is because when I'm doing musical theater, then yes, I have to stay on script. It has to be the same every night, exactly the same for everybody involved. So when I am doing cabaret, I have a freedom. It's kind of like if a music set and a musical theater piece had a baby, it would be cabaret.
Well, let's talk about cabaret a little bit, because
Yes.
when we first started talking about music at all, that's where you went. Mm-hmm. And when you found out that my daughter and my wife sing, you were like, oh, they need to come in, and it's never worked out. We've actually looked at it pretty seriously a couple of times. It's not necessarily for them to come perform, but just to come be part of it. And we live a couple hours away from you. And right. I think we did come see you perform in a play a couple of years ago. And it was awesome. But it wasn't cabaret. And that was the thing. So tell our audience more about what that is, how often you do it, when did it start? I mean, if I understand it correctly, it's pretty much your brainchild. Is that correct?
It is. When cabaret performing really got its origins, I believe, in New York. That's why I call it New York style, and it still happens. Because if you hashtag Dallas Cabaret, you'll get some pictures you don't want to see. because people you don't want a hashtag.
Thanks for the warning, everybody.
Yeah,
Did you hear
thanks
that?
for the warning or the notification. I know there are people now going, Dallas Cabaret, but because cabaret is associated a lot of times with burlesque, and there is a strip club in Dallas called Dallas Cabaret. So we would hashtag, what did we hashtag? We do DLO, Dallas Cabaret, which was Denise Lee on stage. And a real Dallas, hashtag real Dallas Cabaret. So that there was a distinction. When I started singing at the Hideaway, which even though it wasn't cabaret, it was cabaret because it was a piano bar. For me, cabaret is an intimate concert that that has a through line with the songs, however you want to tie them together. And that the interaction with the audience is just as important. The conversation you have with the audience is just as important as the music you sing. It is about bringing them into a story. So this whole Divas of American Music, while they are songs that might not necessarily be connected, they're connected in the way that they're all female singer-songwriters, and they all have impacted my life. You can put cabarets together in different ways. I used to teach a workshop, Jeff Lankoff, about how to build your own cabaret show. And the best, you have to find.
So when did you start doing that?
What,
teaching
cabaret?
People how to do their own?
Teaching. We've done the
teaching.
workshop once or twice, and it's available if you like me to. Any place near you. And what we do is, Jeff is an amazing PhD in piano, and he teaches them how to physically sing the song, and I help them learn to interpret it and how you put together a show and the way that you want it to flow. You don't want all ballads. You put people to sleep unless ballads is your thing and you know how to make that work. I try to let them know that everybody is not going to perform a cabaret the same way. I fly by the seat of my pants really well. And so I can come up with things that I can say. And I said that everybody, you can't, if you see me and say, oh, I want to use that, you have to remember that everybody can't just use everything that someone else uses, only in that it doesn't come out the same way. You have to find what works for you. So I have done, the 202 Fat to Black. I've done, there are a couple of others that I tie together, but I've done a night of Burt Bacharach songs, and I talked about his influence on, barbershop. I'm thinking about now, especially to pay tribute and honor to him, we may add a Burt Bacharach song as sung by Dionne Warwick. But we did an evening of Burt Bacharach. So I like to find songs that I love and then find that common thread and build a show around it. Because one of my rules is I only sing songs for two reasons. One, if they move me. Two, if you pay me a whole lot of money. No.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason.
Because then I'm moved.
Fair enough. Yeah.
No, but for the most part, there were songs that I've had people for a long time would ask me to sing Summertime, and Summertime never resonated with me. And I was like, I just really don't. I didn't feel I could do it justice if it didn't resonate with me. And then I was asked to sing it at a memorial for a friend who passed away. And I found new meaning in it. And so if someone asked me to sing it, I can sing it now. So it's not about me saying I'll never sing this song. It is just, I have to find a way for it to move me, to mean something to me. If it means nothing to me, I'm never going to be able to interpret it for the audience.
There's been over the years that Miriam and I have been in certain situations where a song that she was singing in that moment, good song, liked it. She wouldn't be singing if it wasn't a good song, but there's something about what was going on or what happened that now is etched into our brains, and it just takes the song to a whole nother level. And so now, I mean, they were good songs beforehand, but because of the meaning it attaches to us. And then I think then it's a kind of feedback loop that then allows Miriam to sing it with whole new level of meaning because of our memory. And then it creates more. And that's how you end up with favorite songs. It's because there's so much more going on than the notes.
Well, and people ask me my favorite song, and I'm like, it differs from from week to week, because it just depends on what I'm going through. And so sometimes I'm really radical. And sometimes it's like bridge over troubled water. I want to make everybody happy. Sometimes I'm really ticked about what's going on in society, and it's Mississippi goddamn. So, it varies as to what I'm feeling and what I need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what music does for you, is it gives you that palette that's pretty wide. So tell me about the typical length of a cabaret, and is it typically one person? You can do it with just one one performer, or do you do groups? What size band? I want to know a little bit more about the mechanics. Like, when do you start it? Do you start it late at night? It's whenever? I mean, have you ever done a cabaret at 3 p.m?
I've done yes. I actually sing at CC Young a lot, the senior center here. And I love that we came in and did a set of music or a cabaret for them for New Year's Eve. And the late performance was 8:00. So,
okay.
And that was our New Year's Eve show for them. It was wonderful. Here, there's so much more leniency. It used to be traditionally, I think, from what I have done in my research, that cabaret, again, traditionally embraced in New York, was a lot of either show tunes or standards. A lot of the musical theater or the jazz standards type of thing. But for me, the way I've embraced it, I try to stay true to the style and the format, but not necessarily the musical styles. I think that there is storytelling that can be done with any kind of music. So one of the things that I wanted to create and establish was, if people saw my name that said Denise Lee on stage, they didn't care what the genre of music was. They knew they were guaranteed a great performance. The other thing that I didn't do is I didn't perform every season. I did one set either in the season, or I did it in the cabaret festival that we founded, the Dallas Cabaret Festival. And I did that because I didn't want it to become about following me. I wanted people to follow the art of cabaret. And I would love more people to develop or find more club venues to perform cabaret, which cabaret is a listening. It's not background music. It is people coming in to hear this concert, and it's a very intimate concert. And by intimate, even though sometimes the numbers are big, like you saw so many people, it's about being able to relate to people throughout the show. So it's more than just, here's my favorite song, want to hear it, here I go. It is talking about how that moves you, and the stories. I'm doing Danny Boy on Thursday, and there is, I wanted to find to celebrate Black women in this, but I also knew there were songs that were important that I wanted to sing because I have stories to share about them. So I had to do like any Black woman that sang Danny Boy. So believe it or not, I found a great rendition by Mahalia Jackson. Who knew?
Who knew? I love that. Who knew?
Who knew? And so it helps me to learn too about all the people and the recordings. But then I have this wonderful song that came about when I was in China, and people that I couldn't even sit down and have a conversation with, how we bonded over the song Danny Boy. And, I'll share that story on Thursday night and why it's important, because I never would have thought to sing Danny Boy or learn about what it meant and, that kind of thing. So music builds bridges. And so part of that, as we, the cabaret series now, they're about, my cabaret series is, I think a show should be 75 to 85 minutes long. And, it's continuous. There's no intermission. The way we set it up, we started at 7:30 and we had an audience of people who, gone by were home by 9 o'clock, which is another reason I started it, because I did not want to do any more 9:30 to 1 a.m. gigs. And people that wanted to come see me didn't want to come out at 9:30 to 1:30. So I wanted to create, when you can't find the work, you create the work. And
That's cool.
it has been, we did this for about 5 or 6 years, and people are like, when are you going to do it again? So I got some pretty decent news today. So hopefully I'll have some news that talks about revamping the cabaret series and the cabaret festival.
Fantastic. So, how many different people have performed in your cabarets? I mean, how many different artists have you been able to line up over time?
Oh my God. I have, what we did was we would have 4 or 5 shows once a month, have one show a month for 5 months, and then do a cabaret festivals 3 nights of performing. And so the other thing that I was able to do was support local Dallas artists. We've had country type cabarets. I've had opera, jazz, R&B, blues. And for the cabaret festival, I usually bring in an artist, maybe one, but for the most part, everybody is local. I know I've brought in hundreds of musicians, which has been really cool. My band usually plays for me, and periodically they will play for other people. I've had Jim Caruso and Billy Stritch come in from New York. I was like, Billy Stritch is playing piano for me. It makes me, the man who plays for Tony Bennett and Liza Minnelli is playing for me. And it was just, it's amazing. And then other people come in to get to experience this. And one of the things that found beneficial was I wanted to provide this for free. I didn't want to have to charge a fee for this, because so often we don't get to see the quality and the caliber of talent that this city has to offer, because tickets cost too much. So I was able to get funding a lot of times from the city of Dallas, so that I could pay the musicians, and then people would be able to come and see these shows.
That's nice.
Mhm.
I'm afraid that there's a good chance that we're not going to end up covering all of the different civic activities that you have either created or participate in, because we're talking primarily about music. And like I said, you are very much an actor as well. So I want to talk just a little bit more about music, and then I want to go back to one other topic before I let you go. And I do want to reiterate, I hope that we can do this again sometime in the future, because there's some things that I'm wanting to get into that I want to keep it nice and not forever long today. But you said,
but at some point, will you let me? Because I consider myself, I heard this term the other day, and I think I'm going to start using it, an artivist, which is an art activist.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and music does it, because I'm actually going to bring the cabaret series in under my nonprofit, because music does build bridges and brings people together.
So what's the name of your nonprofit?
It's called Visions for Change. And it came from the idea, just quickly, after the police shootings in 2016, again, talking about how people don't talk to each other, and how we have lost the ability to empathize and look at things from another person's perspective. I went on social media and said, we're going to have a community conversation. And I don't know, I said, don't know where it's going to be yet, but put next Monday on your calendar. And I thought I might get 50, 60 people. 200 people showed up, because we were at the point where we were so frustrated and nobody was talking. So we set up ground rules that it has to be respectful, that you don't have to like somebody else's opinion, but you have to respect their right to have it. And we talked about race, we talked about politics, we talked about those things that we traditionally consider taboo, which is basically what separates us and keeps us from being refrigerator friends, because we don't cross those thresholds, those boundaries. But the only way we can grow together as a community is to be able to do that. So needless to say, it was supposed to be a one and done type thing. Then other things happened, and people said, we need more of those conversations. So we were doing this before it became, really popular. So now I've been doing this for the last 7 years. And
Wow.
at the time, the organization was called Change the Perception, but we changed it as our visions changed. And so we became a nonprofit in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about to launch a new podcast, hopefully. And there are lots,
Okay.
and the cabaret series will be under that because our mission is to empower, create, promote, and produce events and activities that build bridges in our community. And so it's not about reinventing the wheel. If somebody else is doing something worthwhile, we want to help support that, or coming up with ways to create programming. Of course, community conversation will be one that we will always deal with when we're talking about anti-racist type of, learning about one another. I'm actually doing a workbook study by W. Kamau Bell that's called Do the Work. It is an anti-racist workbook, and it takes us on a journey to learn more about history, about our country, and about ourselves.
Well, I will. Yeah, I think you and I talked about this a couple years ago. You were telling me about it and the impact it had on you that first time, and that you were still doing it. So we'll include a link to that as well. Music wise,
Yes.
you had said something to the effect that you didn't have any formal training early on, but you've been learning over time. What were the milestones along the way where you intentionally, how is that journey evolved? Because I mean, if you're interacting with a lot of musicians, there are points where you're like, it'd be really good if I understood this. So can you talk about that a little bit?
In high school, I was in choir. And choir was taught a lot different, a lot of times than it is now. And it's taught a lot different based on where you go to school. And I mean, so much of it relates back to, again, the way we learn, and generationally, and how our choir directors learned. So I learned from Otis J. Lloyd, who was one of the best choir directors at Franklin D. Roosevelt High School, historically Black high school. And a lot of times, those kids, their parents, us, didn't have access to music training. And we learned by ear in the church, where somebody said, sing this. And then Mr. Lloyd gave us a bit of both. He wanted us to know that we belonged. So he didn't discriminate if you couldn't read music. If you could learn it by hearing it, that was a way of learning it. It's not any better, it's not any worse, it's just a different way, and it depends on who embraces that. So the course of high school, then as I went on, I didn't graduate from college. I was there 10 or 15 minutes. And so,
So 10 or 15 minutes.
10, 15 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, and I had some experiences that we'll share when we talk about my nonprofit, because they fall into that category. Because Commerce, Texas was really not ready for an interracial theater department. So I learned as I would go, music directors, and I've had some really wonderful music directors who understood how different people learned. And a good music director will do that. If they see that you have the desire to learn and the ability to learn, they will help. A lot of them will meet you where you are. I mentioned like Jeff Lankoff, Mark Molyneux, Scott Eckert. I know Sheila Walker and Janice Franklin. These are all music directors who say, okay, and they all teach differently. But if you come in with a desire and a willingness to learn and to do the work, they work with you. And that's the sign to me of a really good MD. I had to learn I'd follow along with the music, and I'd learn by ear to watch the notes and kind of know how to follow along with sheet music. I'm not somebody that could pick it up and sight read and realize, okay, give me that. And I've gotten better at it, but I've been doing it now for so long that I've kind of learned the way. So I know enough about music that gets me through. I know how I learn. I've learned how to work with all kinds of music directors who, and the basic thing is being honest. I know where I am in this journey. So I'm honest with the music director. This is what, I can do. If you need somebody that's going to be able to come in and pick it up and read it without you giving them a note or any kind of help, I'm probably not your girl. Now and if that happens too often, if I want to work, then what I do is I have to sit down and learn how to do that. I don't complain because they won't hire me. I have to learn how to do that. That's why we continue to work on our craft. Why at 62, I'm taking piano lessons. So
So are you getting better?
I don't know. It's only my third week. No.
Oh, so you are a newbie.
Literally, we just started. And don't get me wrong, I took piano lessons years ago as a child. I know all the notes on the piano. I know how to find some chords. I know enough to, if I have some music, to say, okay, let me, plunk this out so I know. So I know enough, but I want to learn a little bit more about theory. I want to learn a little bit more about reading. You can never learn enough. It's not a destination. It is a continuous journey. The great thing about what I do is I can do it till I die if people will hire me. And if I do it well, I do it relatively well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm excited about, Mike was like, no, come take piano. I'm too old. He was like, no, you're not. So, and I've had this piano sitting up here forever. I was like, I better put it to use.
Well, I wish you the very best, and I can appreciate how frustrating it can be when you know what it's supposed to sound like when you're surrounded by real musicians who are excellent at the instrument, and you're sitting there trying to do something. And I was working with Miriam on something just the other day, and she was playing stuff, and I'm like, I can't tell you what I'm hearing. I don't have the vocabulary. So I went over and played it myself, and not well, but got to the point where I'm like, this is what I'm hearing. She's like, oh, okay. So, but when you don't have the language, it can be very frustrating in its own way.
But, I think what we have to do is change, because I absolutely agree. I hear you say yes, and what we have to realize that there's value to and how we learn and how we interpret. And people, we can't, for so long, there was a whole, if you don't do this, you're not as good as. If you can't do this, you're not as good as. You just do it differently. I know many musicians, church musicians, I know many professional musicians who don't read a lick of music, but could play circles around people because they learn differently. And when we begin to embrace how we, again, where we come from and how we learn and how we have learned to learn from each other. There are some people that I know that if you don't give them sheet music and try to play something by ear, they panic.
Absolutely.
And so, and there's some people that can pick it up by ear. You play it for me tonight when I go to rehearsal. We will go through all of the songs. I will sing it one time, and then I will have my guys play it for me without me singing it. And then I bring that home and I work with that and I play with that, and it helps me to feel it so that I can be comfortable with what I know I'm going to hear. We all learn and process different ways. And I think, especially now when you see social media, everybody wants to sit back at home from their couch. Oh my God, that was horrible. Like, how about using the words horrible to you? I encourage people to say to me and for me, because just to decide that what an artist does, I would never discourage somebody from going to see art. It may not be my cup of tea, but I encourage anybody, go see it for yourself. If you ask my opinion, I wouldn't, but I will never say, oh, don't waste your money, don't go.
Sure.
Because art is so subjective and social media has made us so judgmental. I'm like, just stop and let an artist do their thing. If you don't like it, don't go. But don't kill what they do. Don't kill their spirit. Don't kill children's spirit by going, baby, you don't sing. No, let that baby sing. There are a whole bunch of people making money that don't sing. That don't sing to me.
It's fair enough. I'd say like 30 years ago, I did a periodic newsletter that was called The Berater. And its very existence stated purpose for the existence is that it exists, and it was so that people would know that there was no excuse not to write poetry, not to write short stories, not to draw cartoons, not to do little, publishable types of creativity. And I told people, I'm like, you could be the worst poet ever. I'm going to publish it to encourage you. No, not to encourage you, to berate you into remaining creative. And I did that for a while because I agree with you.
Better. That's the only way you get.
You got to do it.
Only way to find out if that's your passion.
That's true.
If you stifled yourself because, like you were saying about Miriam, the three little ladies say, "Honey, you don't sing well," and you figure out, and if you listen to that, then and let that little voice in the back of your head say, "Oh, you're not good." We have to affirm ourselves by saying, you know what? I love what I do. And if you love it, come along with me on the journey. If you don't, thank you and find what you love and follow it.
That's it. Because the fact of the matter is there's plenty of things out there. You can go find something.
There's something for everyone. And my job is I have to enjoy what I do. It's not, and by that, I don't mean listening to myself sing. I mean, I have to feel good at what I do. And if I feel good, other people will. Even if it comes in a voice that is not what they, if it's not a Whitney Houston voice, that's a voice. But I don't compare myself anymore. It took me a minute to get there. It took me a minute to realize that nobody can beat me being me. Nobody's a better me. If I go into an audition and they're looking for me, nobody else is going to get it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because nobody can beat me being me. And that I bring something. We all bring something. And if I don't get it, they weren't looking for me. And, that's how I have to navigate this business because we're told no 98% of the time. And if you listen to those statistics, you drink a lot.
Well, okay, so there's one particular time when somebody did not say no to you. They said yes to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put something on the screen. I'm going to tell you. So you tell me whether you remember this. Okay, you ready? Yeah. Do you remember this?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what hurt my feelings though? That beautiful speech that the director came to me and said,
I know.
God, brought tears to my eyes, and it got cut.
Uh-huh.
But it didn't hurt when I say hurt my feelings. I was like, oh man. But I know this business. And I also know that for various reasons things are cut and end up on the floor. And the way they cut it, you could still hear me. You could still, I still got paid. But I've learned that my craft is about me doing the work. And whatever happens on the TV screen after that, not my.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of see you way up on stage, you were the principal.
I was.
And this is on Amazon, and it's a series called Panic.
Yes.
And the thing is I'm sitting in the back of this auditorium doing my job next to the director, and you're way up there. And I'm doing my job. I'm not paying attention to anything. And all of a sudden I'm like, hold it. That's Denise. and the director's back there, and we weren't rolling yet, but I was like, I know her. And she goes, really? She's really good. And I'm like, yeah, I know. She made a short film I do much better than it would have been otherwise. And the director and I were going back and forth going, yeah, she's great. So I went up, and this is not about me, but I'm going to show the reason why I noticed this. So check this out. The very first behind-the-scene photo on the Amazon website, when you watch this, they have behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah.
The very first picture on the very first episode is this, and that's me doing my job with the director.
Yeah.
You get the first AD, and then you've got, so we were watching this, And I was like, oh my gosh, let's look at some of the behind the pictures. And that was the very first one that came up. And I was with my family. That was very, very, very fun. So I've got one other thing I want to ask you about to comment on, because it's a fond memory of me that made me laugh. It was kind of sweet. It was kind of sweet.
And
but,
mind you, I never, he gave me some questions that might come up, but I told him we could wing it. So I have that might be about to bring up.
That's right. Well, it's still with this. So you ready?
Yeah.
Tell me about this guy.
Oh, that is the son of Mr. Jack Nicholson.
Uh-huh.
Who was quite the, if you could see his dad in him.
Oh yeah.
His antics, his mischievousness. He looks mischievous right there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He was a lot of fun to work with and talk to, but I could really see it's Johnny.
So here I am. Okay, we haven't started shooting yet, and once I figure out it's you, I get everything ready. I'm not needing to do my job right there. They're still pushing people around, and I go up on stage, and I'm like, Denise, and you were having a moment trying to figure out like how you look familiar, and then I reminded you who I was, and you're like, oh.
But I think because it had been how long since we'd seen each other?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It was out of context. It was no problem. I'm not. Yeah, there's no reason why you would have.
Why don't you remember me?
Yeah, I was like, but I'm sitting next to you on those folding chairs waiting, and we're just sitting up there chatting and having a nice time. And then all of a sudden, Nicholson walks up and says something to you. And it was nice and complimentary, and it wasn't very long. But when he walked off, you giggled like a little girl. You were so into it. It was funny. No. It was. You were like,
Because it was Jack Nicholson's son, or
I don't know. I mean, he was charming. He was very polite.
I think it was because he had said something very smart-assy earlier.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all.
And so when he came, and I called him on it very.
Oh, really?
Because he said something like, did I belong there? Was that my chair kind of thing? And I said, well, it might have been before I sat down.
Okay, so I had none of that background.
And he was very polite. That's why when you put the picture up, I started giggling because I remember. And I don't know if Jack Nicholson will catch this, but I didn't want you to know I was a smart ass to your son, but smart ass to me. So I
didn't know that.
He was like, I think that was my chair. And they had chairs with their names on it.
Yes, they did.
This chair had nobody's name on it.
Right.
And he was, I think that was my chair. He said, was that my chair? Maybe before I said that. Because he was just being that kind. He laughed. And so when he came up later, he was very polite. And I think I was giggling because of the exchange we had.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, so I definitely learned something because I didn't know the backstory. Now, so to be fair, the first time I was on set and he walked up, I didn't have any idea who he was.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I did notice that he acted like he owned the place.
He did.
And so I mean, seriously, the guy had a presence when he walked up, and it was not on set. I was like doing something off set someplace, and he walked up. And so, but to be fair, I don't doubt 1 second what you just said about him being a smartass. But here's the other end of it, though. I am going to say this, and there's no reason for me to kiss up to this guy. I watched him very carefully because I'm thinking, how difficult would it be to be that guy's son, And then so over the course of the next days, weeks, I can't remember what it was. I had probably 4 or 5 different one-on-one conversations with him. Just, we're waiting around for whatever. And towards the very end, I saw him take legitimate direction from the script supervisor, who is not the director.
Right.
And I saw I honestly saw 2 or 3 times where I'm like, hold it, this guy might not turn out awful. I mean, because he was polite. He seemed to take it very seriously. And the part of the problem is that his character was a jerk. And
I
so
heard what you didn't say just then.
well, and you didn't know if he was just in character because
And, yeah, I think that he was kind of much, and he was in character. He was a practical joker.
Mhm.
When you, from what I saw, and I was only on there, I think that one day, that full day. And but he was very kind after, and I think he was one of those guys who's like, hey, let's, life of the party. Again, I could see a lot of
oh yeah.
his dad's characteristics, or some of his dad's characteristics, which either
Yeah.
that's who Nicholson is, or his son has watched a lot of his movies.
So something's
Very
going on.
talented. He's very good.
Yeah, it worked. And so once again, I don't know what he's like. I'm not saying we're friends, but I was around him more than you were.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see and hear the pre-story that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And
And so,
now
those things you keep to yourself. So, you don't want to go out and share until they get on Leno, or until they get on Jimmy Kimmel, then I'll share.
yeah. Yeah, well, that was fun. We're sitting there, and that was definitely an unscripted moment, and I'm glad that I know the rest of the story now. But yeah, he was talented, and I actually enjoyed visiting with him more than once. And like I said, I did see some very positive things. So I mean, I am a prayerful guy, and it's not my job to go around, praying for what people's futures might look like. But given the way Hollywood works, I have said a couple of prayers where I'm like, I pray that he ends up being okay.
He's Jack Nicholson. He gonna be all right.
It's different definitions of okay. You can be okay by Hollywood standards. I'm talking about in life and in in eternity. That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I hope he's going to be okay. So obviously that has nothing to do with music, but it has something to do with you and I's, random background.
Our shared experience.
Shared experience. Denise, I am going to basically say we need to do this again sometime in the future. You'll have a better idea what you're signing up for. We can come up with other things to talk about. And there's a ton of things I could have asked that I didn't. But we did what we did. You're delightful as much as I remember. I haven't seen you face to face since we came to your performance. What was the name of that performance?
Oh, now.
It was in Africa, right?
It was Ruined by Lynn. Yes, Ruined, which was about the Congo. It was like about trafficking women. It wasn't uplifting, but it was a very powerful piece.
It was good.
Called Ruined. And so, we did that at Echo Theater at the Bathhouse Cultural Center.
That's right. I remember. It was quite entertaining, powerful, all those kind of things.
Performed or produced more.
I say that last part. Your Zoom cut out.
Enjoyed this. No, I said I have truly enjoyed this. No, I mean, we could sit here and talk all day. I have really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you having me on and asking me to be a part of this.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. And I wish you the very best. I think you and I share a moment in time with that project. I don't know about you, but that was a super important project for me that you just blessed. I will leave links on my website, jmattwallace.com. There's a film section in Tertium Quid. There's actually an embed where you can watch the whole short film. So I'll make sure that's in there.
Yeah, if you come back in about a month, because right now you tell me there's a glitch in my website. But when you come back in about a month, it will be a new website, and it will be on there as well. My agent has clips on her website. I'm with the Mary Collins Agency, and
very good.
Of Tertium Quid.
Well, thank you so much. I will we'll talk more in the future. And if
Okay.
things work out, maybe we can come check out some cabaret. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So
I would
thank you
love
so
that.
much. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for hanging out with me today. And we're going to call this one done. So everybody on Music Quest, thank you so much for being here today. I don't have anybody specific to raid. So as we're going out, I'm going to go find somebody that we can go to another channel possibly. And in the meantime, thank you very much, Denise. And we're going to call it good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.